The co-chair of the Global Ocean Observing System. I'm basically going to talk to you about partnerships and about a strategy that we are launching now in GOOS. You've seen a picture like this or similar of that. This is the networks from the Global Ocean Observing System from JCOM-OPS, a very important tool in GOOS. And this is another view of the Global Ocean Observing System, just describing that we are having national and regional and basin scale observing system as well as global observing system. And this is maybe the most important slide. Up to the left here you see the framework of ocean observing. That is a document that was adopted by IOC as the framework guiding GOOS in 2012, coming up from the Ocean Ops conference in 2009. And the boxes here describe the process of ocean observing. So up to the right you have the pink box that sets the requirements of observing. And why do we need to observe? What do we need to observe? Where and how well? And this is a requirement setting. We mentioned, the last speaker mentioned the essential ocean variables. That is happening in that box. And the small boxes inside of these boxes describes then the organization of GOOS. So we see in that requirement setting box we had three panels of GOOS: the physics panel, OPC, the panels for biogeochemistry, IOCCP, and the bioeco panel that was just referred to by Udin. That feeds then into the more pinkish box to the bottom right, where we have the observing, the trading space for how do we do observations. And we see the link there to JCOM, what Nadia, for instance, was talking about, in the JCOM-OPS, who represent the status of the observing system, the metadata service from JCOM-OPS, a very important part of knowing what the status is. And down to the observing networks. And these are the networks that actually are delivering the EUVs to the observing system. A little bit to the right there, we see the GOOS regional alliances that I showed on the slide just before, and a national system. So these are the deliverable or the observers that deliver the observations. To the left, the green arrow is what's really relevant for you all in this room and for this conference. This is the data and information. IODE and the WMO information system and others represented by these two bodies, I would say. Of course, there are a feedback loop from the information back to the requirement setting. Are we meeting the requirements by the information that we gathered? And an observing system as a whole is not complete unless you have filled all these boxes and the loop here. So I'm here to engage with IODE for the best or the benefit of the Global Ocean Observing System. Down to the right here you see some regional projects that kind of exercise most of the FOO in a regional way. So that is the Tropical Pacific Observing System, the Deep Ocean Observing System, Atlantis, which is the basin scale, and MESCAT, which is a sea level exercise in the Mediterranean. So in the GOOS strategy we have a vision. This document is going to be released in a couple of weeks. We're going to have a slightly different wording of the vision, but it's basically saying it's partnership and participation for a fully integrated global ocean observing system, providing critical ocean information needed to address climate change, generate forecasts, protect ocean health, and support sustainable growth. That is the vision of the Global Ocean Observing System that we need you to help deliver. We're looking at the ocean opportunities. The ocean is driving climate, very important in climate. We have food security. There are risks associated with the ocean. We have a fantastic discovery, particularly in the deep ocean. So many things we still don't know. We talked a little bit about the mandates, the sustainable development goals and so on. I don't think I have to talk more about that. And I know you've been talking a lot about the ocean decade. Interesting enough, our vision and strategy is falling in the same time frame here as the ocean decade. The mission of GOOS is to lead the ocean observing community and create the partnerships to grow an integrated, responsive, and sustained global observing system. And no matter how you define GOOS, GOOS is just the sum of all the partners and the GOOS itself to move towards our vision and the mission. We need this partnership and we need to work together. GOOS is looking at basically 3 societally relevant areas to deliver. It's climate, operational services, and ocean health. And you could probably divide that a little bit differently and say that different, but that is one way that we think is useful to look at it. In the GOOS strategy, we are looking at 3 different main goals, and we have 11 strategic objectives. I'm going to go through them very quickly. Down to the left, you see the deepening engagement and impact. So we have strengthening of partnerships that we need for delivery. We need advocacy and communication of ocean observations. We need to evaluate the impact of the observing and the information. And we need to empower and innovate new innovation applications. And the top left, integration and delivery, that is kind of the core business. So it's about observing design, sustain and the observations, and very important, the open data principle. And we're building for the future. We support innovation. We want to guide capacity development, very important. Observe human impacts and champion effective governance. So I put here a short version of the IODE objectives. I know they are changing, but I try to distill them a little bit down here. And I put some arrows in there between the objectives of IODE and GOOS, and there are many interlinkages, particularly, of course, we have open data and strengthen implementation in terms of best practices. That arrow is unfortunately missing on the slide. Partnerships, advocacy, so that is about applications, the end users' products, and it's about capacity development. So this is how I see that there are many interactions between GOOS and IODE that we can deepening and work out how we actually will engage with each other to deliver, because in the end it's about deliver to end user, whatever the end user is. This is the value chain of ocean observations. We start with observations. That's another way of looking at that full schedule. Data management, this is this group. Analysis, forecast, and models. So that is more down to information to the users. Applications, even more downstream, and then the users itself. So in the GOOS strategy, we think that the FAIR data system is an important part of our mission. Without having findable, accessible, reusable, interoperable data, we will never reach where we are going. So that's one very important engagement point with this group, how we can improve that. Thinking particularly that many of the ocean observations that we have are driven by science projects rather than by operational services. And we are making progress in making that data more accessible, but we have quite a way to go. And it's also about making that data accessible over different, we heard a lot about that this afternoon, different ways that we can take the data in different formats and make that usable and accessible for the end user in many different ways. And that is one way of looking how that could look at. And this graph here shows that we are looking at very different scales. We have the coastal scale, very regional. We have areas like the Caribbean or the East Sea. We have the basin scale networks that's coming up, like Atlantis. And we have the global system. So these are delivering data at different scales, spatial, temporal scales, and we need to look at ways that we can integrate that seamlessly in time and space. Ocean Ops 19, that is a coming up in September in Honolulu. Very important, so I hope I see many of you there at that conference. So that is follow-up of the 2009 conference, which was in Venice. And we're looking at many different ways to engage end users and improving the framework. And one thing that we're looking particular at and what I would like to talk to you a little bit more about is the governance of this ocean observing system. So GOOS, which was mentioned before, started as a more physical and operational observing system. And since 2012, where we engaged in the food process, we are looking at biogeochemistry and biology in addition to physics, and thereby engaging many more end users, but also observing systems. And that leads, in the end, that we need to revise and improve our governance system of the whole thing. So we want to engage with IODE and the ocean data management community in this process. So I hope that you can engage and let me know what you think. We have a community white paper, and we're organizing a series of workshops. We're going to have a process in place to get feedback from the community. GOOS and IODE are already collaborating, of course. We want to deepen this collaboration. The fair data principle is a very important principle for GOOS, and I hope that IODE and WIS can be partner in delivering that. We're looking at deepening the partnership, and as I say, I think that we in GOOS and IODE can find ways to work together to improve the value chain from the observations all the way down to the end users. That's what it's really all about. And keeping the appropriate accuracy, quality, and latency of the data. Thank you.